Hello and welcome back to the garden. Today we are doing our June garden tour. It's been exactly 2 weeks since the last video that I did. And I thought this month, since so much stuff is happening in the garden, that I would do 2 tours. One in early June and one at the end of June. So here we go. So I thought last month that the backyard garden was starting to look like a jungle, but this month it's just tripled in size. And you can go and look at the video from May and you'll see what the beets and the pole beans look like. They're huge now. My little walkway that I have is, I'll give it a week, it's probably going to be overgrown. I might not be able to get back there and pick the peas. But my volunteer tomatoes that I've let go are starting to flower, which is really exciting. And I've been coming back here and picking the suckers off of them every couple days to just give them their best chance. I have no clue what variety these are or what they're going to produce, but I'll just let them go. All the spinach here you can see I cut back because it started bolting, but some of it has persistently kept growing. The sorrel is going to be picked today. We're going to make something with that for dinner. And the lettuce I'm still harvesting. I've planted more lettuce here. My arugula got pulled out in the back and I planted more lettuce back there. Lettuce is one thing we just can never get enough of. My pole beans are really happy. They're going absolutely crazy. I kind of regret putting the cucumbers here, but they're doing okay. And we're going to be harvesting our first cucumber soon, if you can see them back there. So they're going to be a bit of a pain in the butt to harvest, but I have limited space so that it works. The beets as well are starting to beet back there. Look at that. Fantastic. Love it. My sage is going crazy, and if anyone has any good recipes that we can use the sage for, we've been using it just as a rub on like pork and chicken, but if you have anything that uses a lot of sage, please let us know. I told you, last video I told you these guys would be flowering late in June, so my clematis. And my fig tree is doing fantastic. We don't have no figs though. We didn't get figs last year. I don't know if we're gonna get figs this year, but it's kind of a novelty. My dogwood. This is a Japanese dogwood, and it's absolutely covered in flowers. And when we first moved in, I hated this tree because I thought it was ornamental, and I'm not a huge fan of, ornamental trees have their place. Ornamental trees totally have their place. I'm not pooping on those. They're great, especially if they flower. They're fantastic for the bees. I just thought because our yard is so small and we have such a limited growing space, the fact that so much of it was taken up by this tree, I wasn't a huge fan of. But last year, I found out they fruited. And I learned that the fruit are actually edible. And I learned this a little bit late in the year, so I wasn't able to save all the fruit that I wish I could have. But now this year that I know that the fruit is edible, I'm going to be saving as much as I can. And we're going to see if we can make some cider out of it. Because from what I researched, the fruit is very good for cider making. So that's going to be this year's fun project. Okay, so day 2. I attempted to film a garden tour for the early parts of June, and we ended up getting hit by a huge rainstorm, and I got rained out, and I wasn't able to do the garden beds at the back here, so we're doing that today. The big garden bed in the back corner is doing super, super fantastic. The corn is about waist high now. I've started some pole beans at the bottom, and those should be able to climb the corn once they're more established. Some of the corn needed healing up. It started falling over, which totally happens. Nothing wrong with that, but it's doing really well. I'm really happy with it. The onions, these are Walla Walla onions. They're doing really well. The beets are popping up. The carrots are popping up. The kale is all popping up. These two should be doing really awesome. We're due for a heat wave this week. And the bush beans are doing really well. None of my spaghetti squash germinated this year, and that's totally fine. It was my first time trying to save seeds from spaghetti squash. This guy here is a zucchini. I got him from Organic Leaf Drop in Chilliwack. They are a new farm that's doing a bunch of veggie starts. They'll be selling produce and eggs and local honey, all sorts of great stuff. So super, super happy. We'll see how he does. Zucchini always goes crazy. And then the potatoes in the back there were just kind of leftover potatoes, and they're doing way better than I thought they would. As you can see, our garden does have a bit of a problem when it comes to morning glory. No matter how much of this stuff I pull out, it comes back and it goes crazy every year. Morning glory is a super invasive plant in Chilliwack. We battle morning glory and Japanese knotweed a lot. And these are plants, once you have them, no matter what you seem to do, besides spraying, which I try to avoid, you just can't get rid of them. So it's more mitigating their impact rather than utterly getting rid of them. But I honestly couldn't be happier with this plot. It's the first year we've been dealing with it. It does need some more mending, as I've been seeing. I think it's pretty low in nitrogen because our beets and our carrots aren't taking off like they should. But again, that's totally fine. It's the first year gardening in it, and you always learn new things. I've taken to using the sprinkler to water these beds. This bed here is mine, this bed is a neighbor's, and the next one is mine. So we just hit all three with the sprinkler at once, and it does a lot better job of having an even watering rather than using the hose. I find using the hose, the water pressure is a little bit too much, and it tends on moving the dirt around. But as you can see, my tomatoes are doing really awesome. I need to tie them up another row. Again, like the tomatoes in my backyard, I'm trying to get rid of the suckers as much as possible from these guys. But they're all flowering, and we should be getting tomatoes again soon here. And our peppers are starting to flower and bud. These are our California Wonders, and those are our jalapenos in the back, and another volunteer tomato. Volunteer tomatoes everywhere. Not gonna complain about them. And all of our onions, they flowered. We took the flowers off, and they should be bulbing up a little bit more in the bottom. Plants in the other raised bed are doing really well. These guys here that I thought were collard greens, turns out they're actually kohlrabi. That, folks, is why you label all of your rows. Otherwise you end up like me and you're eating the leaves of kohlrabi thinking that they are collard greens. My garlic is doing really, really well this year. We had a bit of an issue where something or someone pulled out 2 of the cloves of garlic, and I just found them lying on the grass, which, if you've ever been part of a community garden, you know sometimes happens, and sometimes there's nothing that you can do about it, but regardless, it peeves you off nonetheless. So the garlic that we do have remaining is doing really well. It all turned into garlic grease scapes. We snipped off all of the scapes and I've been using those in stir fries. If you haven't had garlic scapes before, they taste kind of like garlicky onions or garlicky beans, and you can just saute them up in some butter, salt and pepper. They're really good. Or you can turn them into a pesto, you can pickle them, you can add them to stir fry, which is what we've been doing. Garlic scapes are awesome. Once the bottom set of leaves on the garlic starts to go brown, then we know that the bulbs are finished. We can pull them out and cure them for storage. And then in place of the garlic, we are going to be putting pickling cucumbers. It's still June. It's not too late to be planting cucumbers. I have a bunch of cucumbers planted in the backyard garden, which are now starting to produce cucumbers. So we'll be eating from them. And while we're eating from them, the ones back here will be maturing, and about a month later should be producing cucumbers that I can pickle with. And I'll be pickling them with the dill heads from the dill in the flower planter by our unit, which I will show you now. So this planter back here is beside our unit, and I planted it this year with Flanders poppies, Indian calendula, and a bunch of hollyhocks. The hollyhocks didn't seed. I'm not super great at planting flowers. I love them. I know they're really important to attract pollinators and bees, but I was never able to spare my vegetable space to plant flowers instead. So I'm super happy to have this planter back here to be able to plant flowers. And along with the flowers, we had a whole bunch of volunteer dill. Nothing wrong with some good volunteer plants. So in with all these flowers, you can see all the yellow heads popping up are dill heads. I harvested a whole bunch of the dill and I dehydrated it so we can use it over the winter, and I'm just letting it go to seed because dill heads are the important part that you need for pickling. So I think I'll have more than enough dill heads this year for all of the pickles and sandwich pickles that we like to do. So that's it. I hope you guys are having an utterly fantastic June. I hope your gardens are thriving and producing everything that you thought they would produce. And I hope that you join me back here again next month for July's garden tour, because I am so excited to see what the garden starts producing in a month from now. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell notification at the bottom so that you get notified every time we post a new video. See you next month.